Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've never lived in Detroit proper. I've worked in Detroit, and I spent a lot of time in courts in Detroit. And Detroit's the largest major city near where I live. I grew up in southeastern Michigan. I grew up one county north of Detroit. But if people ask me where I'm from, I say Detroit, because that's the nearest big city. Obviously, when I'm speaking to somebody, here, and they go, where are you from? Then I'd say, oh, well, I got an office in Southfield and so on. But if I'm talking to somebody around the country, or around the world, I say, oh, I'm Detroit, near Detroit. So Detroit's had all kinds of issues over the years, major problems. They went through a bankruptcy a while back, which caused all kinds of problems. But there's all kinds of other issues, and the city's had problems with how it's been managed over the years. And every now and then, a crazy story comes out about the mismanagement of Detroit. And one of the biggest problems that Detroit had in the last few years is how many homeowners in Detroit couldn't pay their property taxes and as a result got foreclosed on, and they lost their homes. And it's coming out now that there may have been some issues with how those calculations were made. And several people sent me a story from the Detroit Metro Times. And the Detroit Metro Times is an alternative newspaper in southeastern Michigan. I've actually written for them before. A couple articles of mine appeared years ago. But the headline here by Steve Neveling says, Detroit illegally overtaxed homeowners $600 million. They're still waiting to be compensated. And an estimated 100,000 Detroiters lost their homes to foreclosures because of the overassessments. So a couple of things come into play here, one of which is how much your home is worth, because that's how they base the assessment for taxes. If the assessment is wrong, you pay the wrong amount of taxes. But to get the assessment corrected takes a fight, and a lot of people are unaware that they can fight that. And many people don't. They just say, I owe this money, I'll pay this money. So the city of Detroit made an extraordinary admission about 5 years ago. It had overtaxed homeowners by at least $600 million beginning in 2010 through 2016. The illegal inflated property tax assessments resulted in approximately 100,000 Detroit homeowners losing their homes to foreclosure. The Michigan Constitution prohibits property from being assessed at more than 50% of its market value. And between 2010 and 2016, the city assessed properties at as much as 85% of their market value. To this day, residents have not been compensated for losing their homes or paying more than they owed in property taxes. The Coalition for Property Tax Justice is trying to change that. They surveyed more than 200 overtaxed residents to determine how they want to be compensated, and they released a report on Thursday. Residents indicated that really no amount of monetary or in-kind compensation could fully repair the harm that the city or county had caused them, their families, and their community. That's a housing activist and researcher speaking at a news conference recently. Residents emphasized that they wanted resources to support them in dealing with the irreparable and intergenerational mental health consequences. They also want the government to apologize and to be held accountable for the wrongs that were committed. They're calling for swift and meaningful compensation. Most of the surveyed residents prioritized cash payments as compensation, but that's likely not going to happen because the mayor's administration insists that state law prohibits the city from providing cash payments or tax credits as a result of an overtaxed situation. Activists say they disagree and are calling on the Michigan Attorney General to give her legal opinion on this. As a lawyer and a law professor, I believe the legal logic is flawed, says a professor at Chicago Kent College of Law and a member of the Coalition for Property Tax Justice. There are all kinds of programs where money and resources are going to various individuals. The legal logic, in my professional opinion, is suspect, which is why we need to get the Attorney General to weigh in on this. The mayor and the city council have tentatively agreed to spend $6 million on resources to residents who were overassessed, which represents 1% of the amount that was overbilled. And you'll recall we talked about tax assessments and foreclosures previously on this show, because Michigan is also one of the states where if they come after you for unpaid property taxes, they could sell your house at a property tax auction and then just keep all the money. Not just the money you owed, but all the money. And that got spun around eventually by the courts. But for a long period of time, there were people who had equity in their homes, but were short of cash when it came time to pay the taxes, couldn't pay the taxes, and they lost the house to foreclosure and all the equity above and beyond the taxes they owed. And so there have been all kinds of injustices going on down there. Without the option of providing cash compensation or tax credits, advocates say there are still plenty of alternatives that include home repair grants, houses or side lots from the Detroit Land Bank, small business assistance, and employment opportunities as well. Council President Mary Sheffield, who's advocated on behalf of residents and the Coalition for Property Tax Justice, said she and her colleagues are seeking justice for those who have been unconstitutionally overassessed, saying residents should be allowed to determine how they're going to be made whole. So she also expressed skepticism about the mayor's administration opinion that state law prevents the city from providing tax credits. She said the council is beginning to work with state lawmakers to address any laws that would prevent tax credits as compensation. Because, of course, if there's laws in the books, they can always change those. She said, we are working diligently and very hard to find solutions. We don't just want to put a Band-Aid on it and not get to the core of what happened. Meanwhile, the impact on residents has been more than financial. They spend a lot of time blaming themselves. When you are buried in a mound of shame, there's no space for righteous indignation, anger that leads to action. And so part of the work of educating people about the structural injustice called illegal inflated property taxes is freeing them from this mountain of shame so they can move to a place of righteous indignation and fight back. That's where I believe Detroiters are now. So here's the thing. It's another situation where the hole they've dug themselves into, the city of Detroit, is so deep that they can't get out of it by doing what most people right now would think would be the right thing to do. So if they illegally overtaxed homeowners $600 million, and you can prove that, you'd think, oh, well, you refund the money. Problem is, $600 million. You don't need to be from Detroit for me to tell you that they haven't got that laying around. They don't have $600 million laying around with nothing better to do than to reimburse people for something that happened a while ago. So they're going to use every resource at their disposal to avoid even addressing this because there's no way they can do it. If it was $6 million or if it was $1 million, they would just say, oh, just put it in a fund and distribute it. We got no problem with that. But when it's $600 million, then you've got a problem because they haven't got the money. And there's also the problem of the 100,000 people, they say, who lost their homes during this 6 or 7 year period, who shouldn't have lost their homes. But the homes are now owned by somebody else, or they've been demolished, or something. And, you can't very easily make these people whole. And the city of Detroit, of course, is not in a position to do it, even if they wanted to do it. So the mayor, looking at this, says, well, they want us to do the impossible, which obviously can't do. The only alternative then is to not do that and do something else. So let's look at what else we can do that's not going to cost that much money because we ain't got that kind of money. And so it's a terrible story. And I've heard bits and pieces of this over the years. I didn't know the problem was this big, but that is a very large problem. So Detroit illegally overtaxed homeowners $600 million. That money is still gone, has never been, paid back. And an estimated 100,000 homes were lost as a result of that. And can they make this good? Is there anything they can do? We'll have to wait and see. But as of right now, it looks like the people in power are saying either they don't have to do it or they don't want to do it. And it's probably wishful thinking on the first one, and quite truly that they just don't want to do it because they can't do it. So Nathan, Scott, and Matt all sent it from the Detroit Metro Times. Steve Neveling wrote it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Never take action until you have clearly answered the question, what happens if I do nothing?